Are you ready to explore the unknown? Dive into the world of the strange, mysterious, and unexplained with Eerie Expeditions magazine. Each issue is packed with spine-tingling tales, cutting-edge paranormal investigations, and exclusive insights into hauntings, cryptids, UFOs, and more. Whether you're a seasoned investigator or just love a good ghost story, Eerie Expeditions magazine has something for you. Join our growing community of truth seekers and adventure lovers. Subscribe today at EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com and unlock the secrets of the supernatural. Are you ready? That's EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com, where the extraordinary is just a click away. Dare to discover.
Welcome to this episode of The Gateway, broadcasting live from the edge of the Mojave where the strange slips through the cracks. We are live on United Pub Group Radio Network 107.7 FM New Orleans, and I'm your host, C.L. Thomas. Tonight I'm talking with Timothy Shaw from the Black Cat Lounge and his book, C2D1 Haunting. I have it right here. Can you guys see me? Hold on, I can't see you. Yeah. So, but before we get into that, I have a couple of housekeeping things to go over. You've been listening to Sean Callie with Into the Night right here on United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM. After the show tonight is Paratruth with Eric and Justin. I think you guys will really like their show too. It's a little bit of a darker paranormal. So stay tuned for that. They're on right after me. It's currently 98 degrees here in the valley. I hope everyone is well. Eerie Expeditions magazine is now available online. The copy for an online version is only $1. So stay tuned for the developments of the magazine. There's going to be a lot going on with that in the next couple of months as I build it back up. But for now, it's going to be a bi-monthly publication. So if you would like to contribute a story or you would like to purchase an advertising spot, get in touch at contact@EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com. So this past week, I was at the Grand Ole Opry. Isn't that exciting? A lot of people don't get to see the ins and outs of the Grand Ole Opry. Has anyone out there been out there? I don't think there's a lot of people in the comments that I can see today. Hi, Heidi. Heidi, have you been to the Grand Ole Opry? I've been there quite a few times over the years with different country music artists, and I don't know. I'm not really much of a country fan. These are like the old school people that would play there, like Charlie Daniels, and I listened to a lot of bluegrass, so I saw a lot of bluegrass bands there. But my favorite of all time, my favorite concert of all time was Coldplay at Ryman. So this was before they were really big. But a lot of people don't realize a lot of this country music stuff, like the venues, the Ryman Auditorium, which is actually an old church. It started out as an old black church, actually. A lot of people don't know that little piece. But it's an old church. A lot of big shows play there. And the Grand Ole Opry, that's been around for a long time as well. And both of those venues are very haunted. So a lot of people don't think of Nashville as being haunted, but those two are very haunted. So one day I'm going to have a show on here and just talk about the haunted country music spots around Nashville. We can talk about Johnny Cash. There's a whole list of them. Dolly Parton's family. It goes on and on. A lot of fun can be had with this. So I am planning on doing that. My tonight's guest, he's a great guy. I just love having him on, and I can spend hours talking to this guy. He hosts the podcast, The Black Cat Lounge, which airs on Facebook Live, and he volunteers at Lockport Community TV. He also does other things, like he does historical reenactments. He teaches, I think he liked cryptozoology. He does a lot of paranormal investigations, and he does a lot of cemetery restorations. He sent me a book, I think it was back over Christmas, the C2D1 Haunting, and I read the entire thing. Here it is. It's in one of his older books. But the story of this kind of captivated me, and I think I read it in 24 hours. It's an easy read, and I think you can get it on Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. I'll ask him in just a minute. The book had a lot of personal similarities with me, with a haunting that I experienced and wrote about probably about a decade ago now. And that book is Dancing with Demons. But this book here, it brought up a lot of interesting memories for me, as well as some ideas. Do spirits target certain individuals? And that's what we're going to talk about. So let me get him on here. Timothy, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you? Thank you for inviting me on. You know what? This is great. You know, there's only one person that I would cut my own personal show short for, and that's you.
Thank you so much for, you know what? Just thank you for all your support the last few months.
Oh, you know what? Here's the thing. You know, it's funny, but I always had instructors over the years that had said to me, well, you know, Tim, I'm a good judge of horse flesh, so you might go somewhere. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say anything about horse flesh or anything, but you know what? The one thing that I thought about when we've messaged back and forth or we've spoken was we have so many similar values, and we have a lot of the same opinions, and we see things perhaps a little bit differently than a lot of other people do, especially being in this insane world of paranormal and all this other stuff. And I think that's what you impressed me with it. And then when the second time that I had you on the show and I had read your book and we were talking about it, I thought, wow, because as someone who has really gone and I've worked with a couple exorcists and I've learned from, guys like Johnny Zaffis and some other people over the years. When I read your book, there are certain patterns, certain steps, certain things that you read into. And then when I talked to you, it was like, that's wow. Okay. And that's when I kind of figured out that I'm a good judge of horse flesh. So, and I believed, and again, I believed it. And I think that's what, and I'm a person that's very jaded. So, people come up to me and they tell me all these stories and I'll smile and be very nice and say, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing. But a lot of times I really don't believe what they're telling me because it's just, it doesn't work within the realm of my own experience. Whereas what happened to you was very close to so much that I've gone and either experienced or I've talked to people or I've worked with people that have had that experience or talk about it. So yeah, that was great. I mean, it's great to be able to hang out. Well, we're on opposite ends of the continent, but we get a chance to hang out and talk about the scorpions in your house and bugs.
Oh, yeah. For those that are listening, I just killed a scorpion right before I came on air in the house. And it's it's been going on all week. I don't know if I don't know how fast they even grow. I don't know anything about bugs because I hate them so much, but they have had to have hatched or something, but they're like this big. So
no,
I don't know. Were they just living in the walls or something? I don't understand.
No. Please. Now I'm going to be walking around my house here in the East. You know what? I got little sugar ants that are about yay big, we got traps set up all over. No, I'm not a bug guy either.
Yeah.
I did a vision quest many, many years ago, and it was great. I'm out there by myself, and it was an amazing experience. But the second night I was there, I woke up and I had a tick in my belly button, and never again. I'm going to tell you what, it was like, it was that like 30 seconds of like ultimate panic with the sweat coming down. And then I realized, my logical mind kicked in, but no, I'm not a bug guy either.
Oh, I hate them all. I just hate them, especially if they fly. It makes it like 10 times worse.
Listen, where you live, they're not bugs, they're birds.
We have bats around here, and the bats are like big too. They're like this big. Everything's big here. I guess you have to be for this terrain, but everything's giant.
Here, it's not too bad. The worst that I have to contend with out behind my house is deer and turkey. That's it. And I figure both can end up on my dinner table at any time.
Especially that turkey. So you wrote this book a while back, but I know you said you were redoing it though, right? Are you redoing this one?
I'm going to be working on it. Yeah, I'm going to redo it. There's a couple things that have come to light over the last couple of years. A couple things that I've actually can understand a little bit better about it. And so back then, I forget. Oh my God, we're talking a while ago. I was approached by a director that was doing a independent movie on this kid, and I was like, "Why are you contacting me?" And I was with the old I was with the old Parax network at the time and CBS at the time, and he was being interviewed, and so I had like sent a couple chat room questions and trying to be like almost intelligent, which is hard for me to do on most occasions. And the next day I got an email from the director and asking me if I'd be interested in writing a companion book. And I had never done that. I had written regional books and and articles and that sort of thing, but I'd never written a companion book. And it was a whole new experience for me. And they were like, "We're going to go and let you do whatever you do and let the chips fall where they may." And I was like, "Well, what happens if this comes out negative? What happens if I find that this may be," which I didn't, but what happens if this may be more psychological than spiritual? And they said, "Let chips fall where they may, where they be. Just let them do it. Do it." And it's funny because the book that you have now, in that incarnation, that took me 7 days to write, but it took me over a year and a half to research, and probably about 25 false starts. It was one of those projects that, unless I could get all of my information all there in front of me, I couldn't get the book started. It didn't make any sense, no matter what I did. I can't even tell you how many times I went to the college, I went to the dormitory. I would call all the principal characters up.
So you talked to Chris?
Oh yeah, and everybody, and I went and I would ask the same question 3 to 4 times, different ways, so that I would know that they weren't lying to me. And every time, I would say, "Hey, can you tell me about the first night that you got this infestation? What happened? What was going on? Why was the tape recorder in your drawer? Why did it turn on? Do you know why it turned on? Did you have I'd ask 1,001 questions. And as a matter of fact, just the other day, I was going through one of my filing cabinets and I found all my notes from this book.
Oh, wow.
Totally handwritten. That's not any of the, any of the stuff that because he lives probably about 6 to 8 hours away from me. I have every handwritten note that I ever made. I have all the recordings of all the interviews that I did with everybody. And it's just amazing. And I was looking through them the other day going, to me, it's still insane. And I'll stick by what I say about that book. It's probably one of the best things that I can be proud of, because I actually got a chance to delve into the mind of what I'm going to call a victim, a psychic victim. And to be able to go be on that ground floor, because afterwards, he got picked up by school spirits and he was on the Netflix special, and he would speak here and there, and he was on the circuit for a while, and he's written his own memoirs. But to be at ground zero when you're putting something together, and they had already started filming, and some of the stuff that I had found did not jive with what they were doing in the film. And they actually, in that little independent film, they actually changed the whole ending of it because of the extra stuff that I found with it. So it was that was a great experience. But it's just an incredible experience to be able to go and have to sit down and figure out the whys and hows and whats, and still come up with a big question mark in a lot of different aspects of it. But I mean, I went back almost 3,000 to 5,000 years. I did ground searches. I looked at Native American lifeways and who was on that property, and even there's a big part of it that kind of wraps around the Revolutionary War. So I mean, I really did a lot of boots on the ground research when I was out there, and it was a great experience. And again, it was a year and a half of really going and deep diving it and finding these obscure books. Luckily, at the time, I was a docent up at Old Fort Niagara, which is a historic site here in Western New York, up on the Niagara, right up on Lake Ontario, where the Niagara River empties into Lake Ontario. And they had a research library of that time period, which was amazing, which was like 1779 and all that. And I was able to go and pull out research from there. And it was amazing, because all of a sudden I'm looking at different things and it's correlating exactly with what he had related.
It's an interesting book for sure. I mean, so this whole case takes place, I want to back it up just a little bit. This whole case, it takes place in 85, right?
Right.
So I think I was 6 years old at that time.
Nice. Rub it in. Rub it in. Thanks.
So this is like, I was experiencing my own little world of My Little Pony and things like that. But this was like, is this pre-Reagan? I don't really remember Reagan much, but I do know that this is way before ghost hunters and all of that. So culturally, this kind of thing wasn't talked about, period.
Well, up to a point, because again, you were while you were engrossed in the world of My Little Pony, I remember I do remember the New Age coming in, the onset of like the interest that was starting to be reborn in the occult matters and all that. And I remember distinctly the satanic panic and all of that going on. So there was an underlying current that people wanted to go and really start seeing it. And if you start looking at culturally, if you start looking at like the fads and the movies, I mean, you had, was it 1973, The Exorcist hit, and that screwed up everybody's playing with Ouija boards. We blame that. Us collectors blame that for, all the bad juju on Ouija boards. But I mean, you had the Hammer films, you had Kolchak, the Night Stalker, you had the ABC movie of the week, which was usually like something that was kind of terrifying. So I mean, it was starting to slowly build. So yeah, it was, I wouldn't say it was totally mainstream, but I would say, yeah, people were aware of it.
I remember like E.T. was the first movie that came out, which was, I cried. I was scared of that one.
I've never seen E.T. Out of all the movies, I've never seen it yet.
Yeah. But we had like Scooby-Doo. It seemed like a lot of the cartoons that I was watching back then was centered around the paranormal in some fashion.
Listen, you gotta love Scooby-Doo because it's always the groundskeeper or the lawyer wearing a rubber mask. It was great because you solved your mystery and it wasn't scary and you went home and then you had Scooby snacks.
Yeah, you ate Scooby snacks, exactly. Well, it's interesting. This case, it takes place in a dormitory, not like a house like you would typically think. So it's different.
It is. And that's what kind of threw me. And that's why I did so much research on the location. Because most of the time, in most of the hauntings that I've been involved with, there's usually, you always look at the set and the setting, and you're looking at the why. You're trying so hard to figure out what's powering it. And one of the big things that Johnny Zaffis, the nephew of the Warrens, always told me was, see if you can find what the battery is. What is powering it? And I thought, well, could it be a Native American burial ground? We live in Western New York. The whole place is a Native American burial ground. It's all paleo or Neolithic, I mean, so, I went, like I say, that's why I went back 3,000 to 5,000 years of trying to figure out if maybe there was a Native American settlement there, or there were mounds or whatever, something there. And I started delving into so many of the legends and lore of the Seneca, which were part of the Iroquois Nation, the Confederacy's western door. They were the far west of their domain. So I just started working on it and picking at it. And that's why I was able to go and able to write the book in the manner I did, was because I finally one day I said, I'm going to write this as if I was writing a log, a journal of what I need to look for. And I started finding it, and slowly but surely things started to go and make sense. And while the Native American aspect has a huge part in it, that wasn't the true I would say the true light of why and what happened. And basically the case was all about a kid, just a straight arrow kid, athlete, went to church on Sundays, went to Geneseo State, got a great room, got a dormitory room in Erie Hall, which is, and the C2D1, that's what goes for it. It's a dormitory. I forget what it is. The C2, I believe, was the room. It was, the quad, and that would have been because the dorm is actually two buildings with a walkway, and it's pretty neat. So why did this kid, this straight arrowed kid, get attacked? Why was something attracted to it? And that was my biggest mystery. And I'll tell you what, that was tough. That was the toughest thing. I got a hold of, like I say, Johnny Zaffis and some of the other people, and a bishop from the Western Rite Catholic Church. I questioned him. He was an exorcist. I questioned him at length. Why, how? And finally, the one thing I got to say is that, and we've talked before, that I'm not a big angel guy. I'm not a big demon guy. I'm a spiritualist. I was a Roman Catholic and spiritualist. But I firmly believe in energetic personalities, and I firmly believe in negative energetic personalities. And the one thing that when I started looking at all the different traditions and different things that go on that kind of associated with attacks, I realized that whatever this negativity is, hates, absolutely despises the purest of us. And I think that is what the number one thing was. There's no rhyme or reason why he was chosen. We can't figure that out, because that's the other world. That's the other side. That's kind of trying to figure, that's their MO that they have to go and figure. We have to figure out. But the fact that he was targeted, and you see this through history, the target.
Yeah, you do.
And it's amazing. And it's like yourself. Why were you targeted? Because you were a nice person. That's why, and talented. And, again, this guy was an athlete. And what I always look for, the one thing that I look for in any cases that I've worked, is patterns. I look for patterns. I do know a scientific group that looks for patterns that associate with phenomena happening. So scientifically, there's something that may build up to a haunting or a phenomena. Likewise, when we start talking about a possession or a temporal possession, there are certain patterns that we look for. And infestation is one of the big ones that we look for. And that struck me when he started talking about the different infestations, the different things, the attacks that were happening in his dorm room, to the point where his roommate left all his books and just left. And he ended up at a Boy Scout camp for a couple of weeks because he was afraid something was going to follow him. I realized at that point that, okay, this is a targeted attack that is building up over time. And we knew that, and you know, when we start looking at any kind of anything of this nature, it's plain as day. Infestation, although now with the onset of all the paranormal stuff and it's obsession is the number one that we have to look for, because there's a lot of paranormal people that are pretty obsessed by what they're doing, and they like they can't go to the bathroom without their recorder to record EVPs, you know.
Yeah, this is a little different though, this case, because much like mine, it's the activity. It's not something that you're looking for in the beginning, but then just little things starts to happen, and then it builds and builds and builds to the point where on this cover he's just standing there and you can see the wind blowing against his shirt.
He's and what happens normally is this: is you get the infestation, which is built to scare you and wear you down. Oppression, where it really goes and it goes into hyperspeed and it wears you down to the point where you're just exhausted. And in the tradition of the Catholic Church, if you ever read Malachi Martin's Hostage to the Devil, the victim has to agree for the spirit to take over, or the spirit will go and just debase you either to become into an animal-like state of being, or kill you, or you kill yourself. And that's unless you go and you allow this thing in and, to do whatever it has to do. So when we start looking at this, we see a classic case. And that's the one thing that I was worried about more than anything else when I wrote the book, was how classic of a case is this? Because I had studied other cases. And again, if you read Malachi Martin's work of all these other exorcists that he had worked with or he had studied, you see all these classic cases. And I went back to Johnny Zaffis and I said, Johnny, could this be a classic case? And I spelled it out for him. He says, number one, he says, colleges have this huge amount of hidden suicides. That's number one.
Oh, they wouldn't report that.
Yeah. He goes, could it be a suicide? And I'm like, I don't know. It's not showing me this. And he goes, what about the pattern? Is it classical? And I said, yeah. And we started looking at it, and I started, over, I don't know how many conversations with him. I explained it to him, and he's like, yeah, that has a really hardcore pattern to it. And it went to the point where it's not only oppressive, but it's also going out there and it's showing itself. Mm-hmm. Something that happened that he was told after I wrote the book, and I believe was announced on the TV show School Spirits, was his dad. He was in such a terrible state that his father drove to Geneseo State, and he stayed with him overnight. And he sat there with a pistol and a baseball bat while he slept. And he never told Chris until when they were filming this, this School Spirits segment, that he actually saw something in the closet looking out at him. And at that point, I'm thinking, okay, we have spirit manifestations. We have whatever it was trying to rip the blankets off his bed. That is classic. That happens. You have sounds, you have oppression, you have something that is following him around, and it's going from place to place. Now, something else that I didn't know about, again, that's why I have to kind of rewrite the book. So we're at Geneseo State, and we're doing a Q&A. Great Q&A. Everybody's asking questions, and and I'm sitting there, half like someplace else, like I normally am, not except during interviews with you, and a New York State senator asks this question. So, was there anything that preceded this? And I mean, what do you mean by preceded? She goes, before the 1985 haunting. I said, geez, I don't know. I said, I've talked to historians and stuff, and nobody has said anything about it. She goes, well, my son came here and had something happen to him in Erie Hall.
In the same place.
Yeah, not same room, but in the same dormitory. Later on, a woman came up to me and said, I think it was 89 or 90 when she graduated, that she would hear a voice that said, where's Chris, in her room when she was by herself. Now, again, this was all stuff that, because I was boots on the ground and we were doing promotion for their little movie and stuff, this is when I started to learn all this extra interesting thing. So it's a case where something has been there for a long time and something still may be there. And I always tell people, when it comes to hauntings, there's the right person, the right place at the right time, and it explodes. And you know that yourself. That's with you.
With this Chris, when you look at the story over time, it really starts to wear him down. So like he stops practicing, he stops running.
Exactly.
At one point, he thought about dropping out of school altogether, which is
that's important. But that's something else. That's part of the oppression pattern, because of the fact that whatever this is, this energetic personality, this negative energy, wants to go and control you and confine you, and it will do anything it can to go and almost put you into a depressive state. And you have to really watch that. And that was so important. Now, he was very lucky because he had a good friend that was really into all of this. I mean, loved it. And he went in there and he took the roommate's, bed, and they were able to go and start, I won't say fight it, but make more sense of it. Because the one thing that you find in many of these cases is that these energetic personalities want to isolate you. And by isolation, I mean, let's face it, if you come up to me and tell me that there's something going on in your room or whatever, and if I come over and nothing happens when I'm there, I'm going to think that, well, you're imagining it. And then you are going to be like, what's wrong with me? Is it me? And that all will feed into a sense of depression and stress and frustration. And he was lucky because he was able to go and have somebody that came in with him that believed in it and actually witnessed some of this that went on. That is so important. So you need to always, if you should fall into a situation of this nature, you need to have an ally. You need to have an ally. And in most cases, even if you go to a therapist, what are you going to say? I mean, they're going to go and medicate you and hope for the best, basically. But in Chris's case, I give him so much credit because he went and he pushed himself to that limit. He didn't give up.
And I think toward the end there, he even had like a complete standoff with this
big standoff. And that's what was so important that people don't realize, that when it happened in his shower, the dormitory shower. And again, I got a chance to go into this dorm, to the room, to the quad. And I got the chance to get into the, into the little bathroom in the little shower area that he experienced all this stuff. When he started seeing the shadows on the ceiling, he knew something was up. And now he started to go, and he had actually a friend that said, you got to go and confront this. You can't go and let this thing just control you. And he didn't. And he confronted it. And he got 3 jagged scratches, deep scratches on his back that took almost a whole summer to go and heal. And he stood up to it. And what I thought was amazing was that when he did stand up to it, whatever it was showed itself. And he's like, I don't care what you do to me, but leave my friends alone. I don't care. And he was at that point where it's like, I'm not giving up, but I will go and I will fight you to the death for this. I don't care if you take my life. And this ghost, spirit, whatever, let go this unbelievable cry and then just faded away. And then we started finding out that there's an ancestral tie. A lot of people believe in ancestral curses. Well, we started looking into it, and we found an ancestral tie to something that was to an occurrence in the 1700s during the Revolutionary War that happened not that far away from the college, and it's called the Torture Tree. It is a Native American. It was a Native American town called Little Beardstown, and the tree is there. It was a sapling. Traditionally, it was a sapling back in the 1700s, and a force of American infantrymen went on recon, went a little bit too far, got captured. Most of the men, except for two, were massacred. They brought these two guys back, and the British extracted information from them, and handed them back over to the Native Americans, who were incensed because George Washington was burning what they call the breadbasket of Iroquois, all the farms and everything, and they ended up disemboweling him, tying him to the tree, and dragging him around the tree as his intestines wrapped around the tree, and and then I think they beheaded one of the gentlemen, and then the other one, I believe he died, Boyd Parker. No. And it's there. So, I mean, and that's right where he was running. He would run track, run over this bridge, over this creek, right by the Torture Tree. So then we found out that his ancestors actually lived down this road, the next property to one of the, I believe it was, I forget it was Boyd, Parker, his family. So there was an ancestral tie in there. So that's what you got to keep looking for. All these little things just keep kind of piling up. And that's what, in order to create an entire reason for why things happen, could it have been almost like an ancestral curse coming down on him? Could it have been the person that he saw in the, in his visions? And when he saw this person, it all made sense, right down to the clothing of the colonial period.
It's just so interesting. What does this case teach us about the relationship between human consciousness and the paranormal phenomena that took place?
You know what? I believe the human consciousness is the result of all paranormal phenomena. It really is, because if you think about it, you can train yourself, and as a medium myself, you can train yourself to become attuned to frequency and the different frequencies of spirit out there and all the different things that go on. I believe that, again, if this thing was ancestral, it zoomed in on someone who was familiar, may have been a spiritualist believe like attracts like, could have been the same like vibrational frequency, and that could have been the reason why he was a target. So, I mean, everything, I believe that for me, consciousness is something that just never dies. I believe consciousness is always there. And again, that's why I always say energetic personalities, because the consciousness never disappears. And I believe that whether it's good or bad or indifferent, it stays there. And when we start talking about the paranormal, it's imperative that we take the time to understand the history, the setting, and understand why everything is in place the way it is.
One thing about this case that I kind of got the chills from, and it was in the very beginning where, I forget their names. The Warrens go in to teach.
Oh, Ed and Lorraine, yeah.
Yeah, they were going around to different schools and teaching, and they just happened to go to this school.
At St. Bonaventure, yeah.
Yeah. And so he goes to that lecture with his friend, I think is his roommate, right?
Right.
That went, or was it the other friend?
I'm trying to remember which one now.
One of them convinced them.
I can't think of it. Now, you know what? You put me on the spot because I can't remember his name. But
It wasn't the Jeff guy. It was the other guy.
It was Jeff.
It was Jeff.
Yeah, it was Jeff because he didn't care about, because Chris didn't care about it at the time, you know, and Jeff was the one that wanted to go and hear them. And well, here's the thing about that. What I loved about it is he went up to talk to Lorraine Warren. Now, everybody knows, you know, that knows anything about Ed and Lorraine Warren is they were like the big lay people back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s that did a lot of work in these haunted locations, and they were, you know, always on TV and everything. And Lorraine, for a Catholic, was probably one of the best mediums that you ever find out. You ever meet somebody like that? And I got a chance to meet her a couple of times, to talk to her a few times. She was quite the powerhouse, to put it mildly. And she for some reason, he walked up to say hi and thank you for the great, you know, for the great talk or whatever. And he put his hand out, and she went and put her hands back up like this and said about him being like something evil around him or whatever. And Ed got up and shielded her. Now, that's a common practice in spiritualism for a medium to break contact. You always have to have somebody there to break contact in case, like, you know, in some seances, light coming in, you protect the medium so it doesn't shock the neurological system. But he did that, and he was just like so like shocked at this. And so I brought that up to Johnny Zaffis, and Johnny is their nephew. I mean, Johnny is Ed's nephew, and he worked cases. I mean, he worked the Haunting in Connecticut case and a couple other really nasty cases.
You got the forward in here.
Yeah. That's why I thought it was great that he did that for us. But he said to me, he goes, "Oh yeah," he says, Lorraine would get this overpowering like feeling of evil, and Ed would have to get up there and like break it. So yeah, and so it's pretty interesting. But also something that happened right around the same time, Father Alphonsus Trabolt, who was a Jesuit priest there, he wasn't really an envoy of the Vatican, but he was a demonologist, and he was ahead of his time. I got a chance to go through a lot of his archives at St. Bonaventure. He's passed on now quite a few years. And he taught a class that was all about the occult. And he used to leave the first row of chairs open. That was for the ghosts. Nobody could sit in those. The ghosts, the spirits had to be in there. He was quite the character. But right around the same time, there was a girl there that claimed to have sold her soul to the devil and had a possession. And they did and I always laugh when I say this, but they did a motel exorcism on her.
Well, how did that exorcism go?
It went well. It went well. It was a teenage angst, and a lot of it was that, you know, and again, at this time during the satanic panic, it wasn't unusual for people to do these rituals and not know what they were doing. That's the one thing that I always warn people, my students, about it. You know, don't do a ritual if you don't know what the hell you're doing, or, you know, or mentor with somebody for a while. But apparently, yeah, she had personality changes and a lot of stuff going on around her, and vocal inflections were different, you know, all sorts of different things. She would go into trance and that sort of thing. And they had brought her to this motel that they were staying at, and Father Alphonsus Trabolt actually went out there. And if you know anything about Trabolt also was integral in the Hinsdale House case, that he did the deliverance, or what they call the location exorcism of the house. So yeah, there's a lot of ties into it, but that's pretty interesting.
That is really interesting. So where is Chris now? Is he okay, or does he still have experiences?
He's got post-traumatic stress still. He has trouble sleeping at night. I think he's come to terms with it finally, because for years they called him the Ghost Boy. And when this was happening, I had heard about it down in Lilydale, you know, and of course all the old blue hairs down in Lilydale, because I was younger at the time, in '85. I think I had hair, maybe. I don't remember that far back, but they were like, oh, that kid's on drugs, it's a college kid on drugs. It's all BS and all that, And I actually went out there looking for him, and a lot of people did, and he would hide. There was like newspaper articles and reporters looking for him and stuff. And he wanted nothing to do with it. And it wasn't until, I forget, just shortly before they started writing a screenplay, they actually got a hold of him, and he said, you know what? He goes, I think it's time for me to, own this, because it's been following me for so many years. And I think it really did affect a lot of his life. Yeah. I won't say exactly negatively, but I think it gave, I think he had that burden pack that he carried with him for so long. And I think that when the movie, the little indie movie came out, and then my book, and then some of the other, he got a chance to start speaking about it and getting out there, his exposure, I believe that healed him so much more. And Chris is a good guy, so I've got nothing bad to say about him. And I think he's a truthful kid. I shouldn't say kid. He should be good for retiring soon. He was an instructor. He's an English instructor in I think a boys' home, a facility for boys that that are troubled. And I think the experience that he had actually put him in that direction, which is great. But he's a great guy.
Yeah, I think he was. Wasn't he in school to do something else? I can't remember what it was.
Well, he was, exactly. To be honest, I would say he was almost ranked to be an Olympian. And
yeah, he was. It seemed like he was. He was. Really
I think. Yeah, he was. I think he was gonna. I think he was taking a lot of different, more athletic courses and stuff. Because I know he spent so much time in the gym and so much time running and marathons and all that sort of thing. So. Yeah, I think that's what pushed him into that direction. And the best part was so he hadn't been to Geneseo in many years. So we're doing the movie was just in the editing stage. So we're doing a trailer. So we come, I had just started the book, and we're in Geneseo. And then he comes to, they have a big gathering every year of alumni. And he's there actually going to talk about his experience, which is like amazing. Where do they put him? Where do they put him and Jeff? C2D1. That's where they put him in there. I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. And I go, so Chris, anything happen? No, thankfully, no.
Don't you know he was probably really nervous about that. That's kind of mean to do. That's a mean thing to do.
I think they did it just to not to fool with him. I think they just did it because, here you can relive your college days or something, But the other one was we were there, and I was up there. I met them up there, and I was doing some photographs, and I was kind of really walking the ground. So I met everybody up there, the production company and Chris. So we get in and we to the dormitory, and we go to the RA, and we go. Chris goes, well, this is what I'm doing, and this is I was here. The RA goes and points to the bulletin board, and there's an article about Chris on the bulletin board. And he says, well, do you want to see your old room? And he said, yeah. He goes, oh, go ahead. Guys, go ahead. He goes, you just can't, you photograph it or, video it. I said, no, there's no problem. I just want to, go back in there. I want to experience it. Knocks on the door, and it's full of ladies. It's all cool. all girls in there. And what does Chris say to him? Hi, I'm Chris DeCesare. I'm you're probably getting all these crazy emails about and everything. Yeah. That was me. It was the funniest thing in the world, and they were in hysterics by it. Nothing had happened to them. They were like, no, there's nothing, nothing going on. But it was just neat to be able to go in there and, when there were like living people in there,
Right.
And it was so funny. But they thought it was great. He signed some autographs and off we went.
It'd be really interesting to know if he ever contacted that spirit again that was harassing him from before.
As far as I know, no. As far as I know, that ended there.
Yeah, that was the same with me in that other place too. It just ended.
And I see this. Some people, it's like they say that the entities will follow them. My question is that, are you sure it's the same entity, because there are parasitical spirits out there that are mimics that can assume the attributes of humans, and it can assume the attributes of spirits, of other spirits, those personalities. So that's hard to figure out, you know. And as a paranormal investigator, you really have to sit down and you really have to really go through the, you know, your little book of tricks to figure out how to do it. But yeah, so I often wonder about that. But he was able to go, and he was able to stop it at that point. And I thought that was great. And I often think to myself, as someone who was, you know, literally, you know, like I say, brought up Roman Catholic, but my father's religion was spiritualism, and went to a spiritualist camp all during the summer and visiting, and all my relatives are down there, and the faith has been in my family since the 1880s. I often think to myself, would I have the same courage to be able to do that? You know, I'm not afraid of, you know, I mean, I like I told you, just not too long ago, I mean, I got knocked right to the ground at a location, and it didn't bother me. Or you see something, it doesn't bother me. But would I have the true guts to be able to go and say, okay?
It comes to a point where you kind of have to, at some point. You just hit that wall where you come at that standpoint where you have to. And that's the best way to describe it.
The big thing that we have to understand is that, and this comes from the late Raymond Buckland and a couple of my teachers, but the big thing we have to understand is we are in total control of anything spiritual that goes around us. And in most cases, I won't say poltergeist cases, because poltergeist cases can just be errant energy and that sort of thing. But anything that has any kind of intelligence to it, you have to go and you have to say, okay, that's enough. Stop. Believe it 100%. You've got to take your control back. And 90% of any of the clearings that we do, that I used to do a lot of negative stuff. Now it's, you know, I'm an old goat now, so you know I don't do that stuff that too much. I'll tell you how to do it, but I want to be in bed by 10 o'clock at night. But I always tell people that you have to go, and in my cases, I always had to sit down and educate the people on what to do and how to get through this, and the patterns and tried and true lessons that I've learned, how to lessen all of this out and how to go, and it ends. You know, this whole I remember when Ghost Hunters first came out, and they were talking about bargaining and stuff, and I went, oh my God, that's one of the worst things you can do. You know, there's no such thing as, well, I'll tell you what, you can have that part of the basement and I'll have the rest of the house. That don't work, because it comes out, it wants everything. Right. So bargaining doesn't work, and you have got to be able to go and you have to get firm with it, and you have to really push to that point. And again, you know, it's funny because I laugh when I tell this to people, and people just like, what? I mean, I've been pulled, like I say, pulled down to the ground. I've been scratched a couple times, pushed going upstairs and that sort of stuff. And, you know, you have to be able to go and realize it comes with the territory, and you have to be in control of it, because what it is trying to distract you, and it's trying to make you question your own belief system. And if you can hold on to your belief system, which is hard, people don't realize when, when you're got all of this pressure on you to hold on to that belief system, that is the only way that you can go and clear yourself out of that situation. And a lot of times, like I say myself, we'll sit down and we'll tell them, this is how we do it. This is the way you look at it. And there's no such thing as going into somebody's house and dance around, naked around a fire in the backyard, with that chicken.
I had a witch tell me that one time, and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. That's crazy.
I mean, some of the stuff. I'm teaching a class soon on cleansing. There's 1,001 ways to do it, and I can tell you one thing: if the person's afraid of it, you can go and lessen it, but it's going to come back, and you have to go and you have to reinforce that. And one of my mentors always said to me, always make sure that before you walk out the door, that the people there have belief in themselves and their own control. And it's your job to give them that control back. And that's what's so important.
That is so important. You're so right. I talk to so many people who don't understand that. They think that just calling in an exorcist or a priest is going to solve all their problems. And they don't realize that a lot of times it's within yourself.
Exactly. Again, in the case of the Hinsdale house, my friend Dan Kless owns it. And I've been going up there since 2011 when they were going to tear it down. And if you do the background on it, classic haunting, a lot of stuff going on, probably revolved because of the kids. A lot of stuff keeps still going on now, but not as bad as it was. And what happened? Father Trabolt comes in, does a deliverance. The first time, does a mass in the kitchen, amps it up. Crazy, just amps it up. Later on, he comes back at a different time, does the deliverance, the exorcism of the property, and everything just drops. Man. But what happens? Months later, bang, starts coming back. Got so bad that the family had to move. And that's where it comes, that people don't realize that.
Well, Timothy, we are all out of time, so I got to wrap this up real quick. People can find your book, the C2D1 Haunting, on Amazon.com.
Yes.
Where's the Black Cat Lounge at? The
Black Cat Lounge, you can go live Tuesdays at my Facebook page, but you can also go and find it on my website, timothytshaw.com. And you can also go, and if you are a member of the streaming network Paraflix, you can find me there too. So I'm all over the place. Oh, and ParaX Radio, and it takes a couple weeks for my audio to catch up there. So,
well, thank you, Tim. You've been listening to The Gateway, broadcast from the edge of the hobby, where the strange slips through the cracks, from United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM, New Orleans. My guest tonight was Tim Shaw, author of C2D1 Haunting. You can find his work on my website or on my Facebook page. It's posted right underneath, timshaw.com. Thank you for listening, and until next time.